And gentlemen, the property market in Singapore has been registering another spectacular rise last month. And now we have got property analysts warning that the Singapore authorities may need to add aggressive real estate curbs down the road if they fail to tackle this house buying frenzy by early this year. And what is worse is that they actually say this. A lack of response may be interpreted as confirmation that the policymakers are only half-hearted in trying to contain property prices. Do you agree with this? Let me give you my analysis by looking at what's happening in Singapore. So the latest figure has just came out, and HDB resale prices have risen by 0.9% in November compared to the previous month. That's 1%. That's 1% from last month, and in total, year on year, it's risen by 10.4%. That's an astronomical rise. Okay. And the price increase was largely supported by real demand, steady demand, especially in mature estate that's well known for their central location accessibility. But the volume has declined according to SRX. Private property prices has also been rising, as you can see from this graph. Okay, some softening in recent months, but generally speaking, still a continuous rise. Well, in November, more than 2,400 new private property homes were sold. And many people have seen this incredible frenzy in buying private properties. And we have seen this sold out in Emerald of Katong, 99% sold. Chuan Park, 76% sold. Nava achieved 65% sold on launch weekend, okay, and so on, right? And Novo Place EC sold 57% on launch day. And these are at astronomical prices. And this is one of the best months in more than a decade. As for HDB resale volume, it has certainly declined. It's down about 8%, 8.7% year on year, as you can see. While the prices has gone up, the volume has gone down. But there's a reason behind. So analysts are saying that there are fewer HDB resale transactions because there's a reduced loan to value limit for HDB housing loan. It's reduced from 80% to 75%. And more importantly, in October, there is a huge bumper supply of BTO flats in very good locations. Not only everybody is keen, even the Lu family is keen in this. With my daughter now, eyeing on some of these things. So there is a huge demand. The locations are mainly very good. So some of the demand went from resale to BTO. So therefore, volume has fallen. Surprisingly, the number of resale HDB transaction has dropped as well. It has dropped from 100 units to about 87 units. And although it has dropped, but the total number of $1 million transaction in 2024 is likely to double that in 2023. And this is still a phenomenal rise. The number of $1 million HDB resale flats have fallen, largely because of condo launches. So there's a lot of nice condo launches. So it actually siphons out some of the demand from HDB $1 million flats to some of these condo launches. So it's a zero-sum game, right? So in particular, I'll quote ERA. In particular, we are referring to segment of private home owners who are right-sizing or HDB upgraders who are prepared to shelf out for $1 million flats. So the recent cut in interest rate and new project launches have helped to sway some of these buyers from HDB flats to new house in private property instead. So this is a trade-off. But specifically, this is where an analyst is very gutsy. They came out and gave an advice to the Singapore government, right? So Singapore authorities may need to add more aggressive real estate curbs down the road if they fail to tackle a house buying frenzy by early next year. Barclays PLC warned. This is a crystal clear warning that if we don't curb this housing buying frenzy, the next curb would have to be much more painful. And Brian Tan and Audrey Ong actually wrote in a note on Monday, and uniquely, this quote is something actually more sensitive. They actually said this: a lack of response by the Singapore government may well be interpreted as confirmation that policymakers are only half-hearted trying to contain property prices. So I don't know whether you guys agree. I think we can take a poll on this, but it certainly spells some truth that, anecdotally, this seems to be the case, right? And I think there are reasons why. And let me give you my policy analysis for this. So let me share my personal thoughts on why this kind of perspective has came out and what I think the government considerations are. So the frank truth is that my analysis is that we have allowed property prices to escalate too much, okay, too much. And at this juncture, if prick the property bubble is very dangerous. If we, when the bubble was smaller, and if you prick it, not so bad. Less people will feel the pain. But now the property prices have gone up so much, okay, and it's now reaching at this kind of astronomical level. You go deliver a painful prick to it, and if the property bubble were to burst at this juncture, I think there's very painful repercussions throughout the whole economy and maybe even to well-being of the people. Let's take the chapter from what's happening in China. China, this exactly happened. They pricked the property bubble after the property bubble has elevated so much and blown up so much. And as a result, okay, right now China is in a very bad economic condition. So, so in 2021, there was a regulatory crackdown on high leverage among property developers, triggering a liquidity crisis. And then after that, the property crisis have greatly affected household wealth, consumption, and the job market. And they're trying to revitalize the whole thing, but they're failed. So the property sector accounted for 70% of household wealth and generates 24% of the country's GDP. So by prickling this property bubble in China, right? They actually sparked off a huge fall in the country's wealth and hurt the GDP terribly. So they're trying to do a lot of damage control, but I think at this juncture is too little, too late. But this is just a repeat of what happened to Japan. Okay, in Japan, we also have another story of this when the asset bubble, blew up so big. Okay, and they deliver a property curb by the Central Bank of Japan, by raising the interest rate phenomenally. It crashed both the stock market and the property market so badly that it plunged prices for a few decades, and as a result, Japan never really recovered from this property crisis. It's arguable whether Singapore is in a property bubble. I think it's controversial. I think there is. Some people don't think it is. There's data, that you can bring out to say that, prices has gone up so much, there's a property bubble. Then you can say affordability is still okay, and a lot of people feel affordability is not okay. So it's a very subjective thing. But for sure, right now, I feel that if you take a needle and prick the Singapore property market with a heavy hand right now, if the property market will crash, I think there will be a huge economic uh, devastation throughout the whole of Singapore because a lot of people have purchased the prices at very high prices. Right now, if it falls by 20-30%, I don't think Singapore economy can take that kind of blow. And this is also, in my opinion, quite risky to risk this kind of measures just before a general election. Okay, and I think there might be a very high political cost as well. So my take is that I don't think, despite Barclays encouraging the government to take action quickly, I don't think we will see that because it is a very dangerous move. So I don't see much changes going to happen at least for at least half a year or so. Could there be a drastic action needed down the line? They could be true. If we allow property prices to rise up too high, I think there's a spillover effect also in a very negative way through our whole economy. So this is where I repeat again that in my personal opinion, property prices cannot be allowed to escalate at the level that we're seeing. It's very important to curb it before allow it escalate. Once it goes up, if you bring it down, that will be very painful for the whole economy to stomach. That said, there's a lot of people who have a lot of property assets, and they are enjoying, high property value. a lot of homeowners in Singapore also enjoying a very high property value. Any downturn in a property market will have a serious repercussion, throughout the whole country. So it's a very painful thing if we allow that to happen. So I can see why Barclays is saying that. I can also see why that our policymakers are taking actions that what they have taken, okay, and not to overdo it. There are no winners in this whole thing, frankly speaking. Okay, maybe property owners will think that they are winning. Well, I think there are high costs to the society as well. So no winners in this whole thing, frankly speaking, in the long run. Okay, this is my view. Please share a view. I'm happy to hear them. We can agree, disagree, especially those property investors. But I think this is certainly something that's worth our concern. Okay. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in a day or two. Bye bye.